You think silence is weakness, don't you? A sign of surrender, of giving up. That's what they all believed when I chose not to respond, not to fight back. They laughed at my stillness, called it cowardice. But what they didn't understand is that silence isn't the absence of power. It's the very essence of control. Each insult, each betrayal, they thought they broke me. They expected rage, retaliation, something loud and messy. But I gave them nothing. My silence wasn't for them, it was for me. It was the space where I sharpened my edges, the calm where I planned every move. I heard everything they said, every sneer, every laugh. They thought I wasn't listening. They thought my silence was the sound of defeat. But in reality, it was the quiet hum of something they couldn't comprehend. Something building, something waiting. Because silence is not empty, it's full. Full of lessons, full of strength, full of everything they ignored. While they wasted breath mocking me, I grew stronger. Their voices were just noise, meaningless chatter. And as they screamed louder, I grew quieter. They didn't know they were fueling something far more dangerous than they could imagine. You see, silence isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's the moment before the storm hits, before the ground trembles. And now, that silence is about to end. They won't hear me coming. They won't see it until it's too late. My silence is my weapon, and it's sharper than anything they've ever known. This is not surrender. This is strategy. And soon they will know the real power of my silence. Silence doesn't forget. Every word they hurled at me, every accusation, every mocking laugh, it's all still here, etched into the walls of my mind. They thought their words went down into the void, that they left no scars. But words have weight, and I carried them all. Every insult became a stone in my chest, pressing down, shaping me. They called me weak, powerless. They said I was invisible, insignificant. But that's the thing about silence, it sees everything. It remembers everything. While they hurled their venom, I stood still. I let them believe their words were winning. I let them think they had the upper hand. What they didn't understand was that every word was like fuel. Every insult they spat became a spark. And in my silence, I held those sparks close, feeding a fire they couldn't see. Not a fire of rage. Rage is loud, reckless. This fire was something else. It was quiet, controlled, patient. When they yell to the world, I listen, learn, research their weaknesses, patterns, and fears. They mistake my silence as a failure to notice. I paid attention to what stood through all the bravado and pretend arrogance. I noticed they were broken instead of breaking me. Now their words have no power over me. They're just echoes of a past I've outgrown. The fire they fed is ready to consume everything they built. They don't realize the silence they mocked has become the force they can't escape. And when I finally speak, It will not be to answer back to their insults. It will be to end the game they started. My silence has taught me that words have power, and mine will be the last ones they ever hear. There's a moment when silence stops being misunderstood and starts being feared. At first, they thought I was nothing. My stillness made them bold, reckless. They didn't see it, the shift. The way their words began to echo back at them. The way my silence grew heavier, more deliberate. They kept pushing, thinking they could bend me, thinking they could break me. But there's a truth they failed to see. Silence doesn't break. It builds. It's the foundation of something stronger, something they can't predict. Each insult they threw became another brick in the wall between us. Each betrayal was another layer of armor they unknowingly handed me. Then came the turning point. It was not a thunderclap, not one explosive, loud, raging event. It was actually quite deliberate. Quietly, they became conscious that I was not going to play their game any longer. My silence wasn't a reaction. It was a decision. They began to see it in my eyes. The calm, the focus. They began to feel it in the air around me, thick with the weight of everything I hadn't said. Their laughter faltered. Their confidence wavered. They began to wonder if they'd miscalculated. Because silence, real silence, isn't passive. It's active. It's deliberate. And now they're beginning to understand what that means. They're beginning to see the storm forming behind the calm. But it's too late. They can't unmake their words, their actions. The harm is done, not to me, but to them. They have handed me everything I need to take them down one piece at a time. And now, the silence they mocked has become their worst nightmare. They think they know me. They think they won. They're about to discover what I am. Silence does not yield. Silence delivers. It's a force they never prepared for. Arrogance built the walls and lies fortified the pride. They stood upon the illusion of power and were convinced that no one could touch them. The closer they reached to the top, however, the closer they were to the fall. They failed to understand that silence does not need to climb. It waits patiently, steadfast, watching as cracks start to form. In their world of noise, they thrived on attention, on control. My refusal to react, my decision to hold back became a mirror they couldn't look away from. They began to question themselves, to stumble over their own confidence. They did not understand why their words no longer pierced me, why their actions no longer drew the response they sought. Every step they took was an unconscious step into the trap my silence had constructed. And now, as I rise, they begin to see the truth. The silence they mocked wasn't a void. It was a storm gathering strength. The power they dismissed wasn't absent. It was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Now, I am before them, not that man they thought they conquered, but something new. They see now the epitome of all they underestimated. My silence has removed their masks, left them bare and naked. They're scrambling now, trying to regain control, but it's futile. I've taken back the power they thought they held over me, and I've multiplied it. Their words, their actions, their schemes, they all belong to the past. What stands before them now is a force shaped by silence and strengthened by every attempt to break it. The moment they feared has arrived. The silence they mocked has become their reckoning, and there is no escaping what comes next. Now, as the storm breaks, they finally understand. My silence was never weakness. It was the calm before their destruction. They stand before me, stripped of their arrogance, their voices trembling with fear. Every word they once used against me now echoes back at them, heavier, sharper. I don't need to speak much. My presence, my actions, and the silence that surrounds me say everything they need to hear. They wanted noise, chaos, and conflict, but I've mastered something far more powerful. Silence doesn't just destroy, it reshapes, it reclaims. This is not revenge. It's not leveling the scores or blow for blow. This is transformation. It's proof that the power they underestimated and the force they tried to bury is always stronger than their hollow words. They plead for mercy now, for understanding. But mercy isn't in my power to give. They had their chance to see me as I was, to grasp the strength in my silence, but they squandered it. Their regret hangs in the air, but it does nothing to alter things. I walk away, leaving them to face the ruins of their arrogance, the shattered remnants of the power they thought they held. My silence doesn't just haunt them, it consumes them, forcing them to confront the truth they tried so hard to ignore. Because silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's a force, a weapon, a reminder that real power doesn't need to yell, doesn't need to scream. It simply exists, unwavering, unstoppable. And as I go, the silence I carry, I take it with me as a reminder of their strength. They will never forget. They wanted to break me, but ultimately, they released a power they could never control. This is my silence. This is my power. And they will never be free from it.